What if I told you that behind the cold, gray walls of a prison lies a story that defies time itself? A tale of resilience, regret, and the unstoppable march of years. Today, we're uncovering the fascinating life of the world's oldest inmate, a person who outlived generations yet remained locked away in the corridors of confinement. Stick around, because this is a story. Brij Bihari Pandey was born in India and spent much of his early life as a Hindu priest. He was deeply involved in the spiritual life of his community, and his role as a religious leader was important to him. His life, however, took a drastic turn in 1987 when he became involved in a violent act that would define the remainder of his existence. At the time, Pandey was 84 years old, a man well into the later years of his life. He found himself caught up in a deadly conflict over the appointment of a new chief priest at a local Hindu temple in Maharajganj, Uttar Pradesh, a region in northern India. The dispute was intense, involving not only Pandey but also his family members and other local people who were deeply invested in the outcome of the temple's leadership. The appointment of a rival priest triggered a violent reaction. Pandey, along with 15 accomplices, including several of his own family members, carried out a brutal attack, killing 4 people in the process. The murder was a result of the deeply rooted tensions over the temple's management. The crime shocked the local community, and the trial that followed was long and complicated. Pandey was arrested and charged with the murders, but it wasn't until many years later that he was sentenced. The legal proceedings dragged on for over 2 decades, with delays and appeals. The case became a long-running saga, reflecting the slow pace of the judicial system in India. Finally, in 2009, after a long and complex trial, Pandey was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment for his role in the killings. Despite his conviction, Pandey's age and deteriorating health became significant factors in his life behind bars. As he grew older, his health worsened, and he became largely bedridden. He required frequent medical attention, and the jail authorities took note of his declining condition. At this stage, Pandey was no longer the active and capable man he once had been. His life in prison was marked by physical decline, and he struggled to maintain his strength. The once vibrant priest was now an old man who could barely take care of himself. In light of his age and health issues, a request for his release was made on humanitarian grounds. The application was made by the prison authorities, who argued that Pandey's condition required care that the prison could not adequately provide. In 2011, after much consideration, the Indian government agreed to release Pandey from jail. He was granted parole due to his age and severe health problems. At the time of his release, he was 108 years old, making him the oldest known prisoner in the world. Pandey's release from prison was a moment of mixed emotions. His relatives came to the jail to carry him out, as he was no longer able to walk on his own. As he left the prison gates, he was greeted with garlands and was seen smiling weakly. It was a bittersweet moment, for although he was free, his health had deteriorated to the point where he no longer recognized his family members. He could barely speak and struggled to hear. It was clear that the years in prison had taken a significant toll on him. Despite the freedom granted to him, his physical condition was fragile, and he died only 2 months later in August 2011, at the age of 108. His death marked the end of a life that had been both deeply religious and tragically marked by violence. For those who knew him, his story was a reminder of the complexities of human nature, how a man who once held a position of spiritual authority could become embroiled in a senseless act of murder, and after decades of legal battles, end his life in a prison hospital. Pandey's story is not just a tale of a life lived in conflict, but also one that speaks to the larger issues of justice, age, and human frailty. His release on humanitarian grounds highlighted the ethical debates surrounding the treatment of elderly prisoners and those whose health had irreversibly declined. His life also serves as a sobering reminder of how deep-rooted conflicts and personal grievances can escalate into acts of violence, even for those who should have known better. In the end, Brij Bihari Pandey's story is one of tragedy, both for the victims of his crime and for him. His years in prison were marked by illness and isolation, and while he was granted a form of release at the end of his life, it came too late to restore him to the man he once was. His passing was a quiet one, far removed from the violent actions that had once defined his life. leaving behind a legacy of regret and reflection.